Nvidia reported unbelievable earnings. For any of you that heard about their earnings, spoke to me about their earnings, I've never seen earnings like this before, really. And that even goes back to the Apple days. I'll read you some stats. 62% year-over-year revenue growth. They make up over 8% of the S&P 500. Sorry, they have 8 to 9% of the S&P 500. Over 80% of the market share. 80% market share. And last but definitely not least, on the products they create and produce, they have margins of 75 to 77%. So when they reported these numbers, what did the stock do? It fell. Unbelievable. The stock fell. And actually, that day started off a good day, if you all remember. And then by 10:45 in the morning, stock market reversed. They went from the NASDAQ being up 400 or 500 points to the NASDAQ being down 400 or 500 points. One of the biggest reversals in history for the NASDAQ. The stock market sold off on the great Nvidia earnings. And we actually have a chart. Let's show the chart of Nvidia. There you have it. That was Nvidia, or that is Nvidia for the month of November. Stock produced the best earnings of any company that I've seen, that I can remember in recent times. And that's what the stock has done. So why has the stock sold off? Well, maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe investors are saying, how much more can they grow? 62% revenue, over 80% market share, 75%, 77% margins on their product. Like, how much more can you make per product? How much more dominant can you be? It's only a matter of time before Broadcom, AMD, and other chip makers eat into the dominance that Nvidia has. But for now, it's just a machine. It just continues to sign contracts, to produce, and to grow. And many think that it'll grow probably at least for another bunch of quarters. I've seen targets for Nvidia 250, 300. I think I've even seen targets over 300, but we'll have to see. Stock price today was up before we came on air, just over $180. So some interesting statistics. We have some illustrations. Let's go to the next illustration, which is Nvidia beats estimates as growth reaccelerates. That lime green bar on the far right-hand side is the revenue growth I was talking about. Unbelievable. Net income, year-over-year revenue growth is that dark line that started to shoot up. You can see there just above 50%. Well, I can tell you it's over 60%. Our next chart, Nvidia beats revenue estimates by the biggest margin in a year. And if you look at Q3 2025, it's just off center there. You'll see that it is a higher bar than the two before it. And the last time you saw numbers that well was Q4 of 24. Our next chart here shows the PE ratio. So even though Nvidia is making a lot more money, look at the price to earnings. The price to earnings is actually coming down on a forward basis. The actual PE is somewhere around 30 on a forward-looking basis. It used to be well above 50 once upon a time, over 40 definitely. And now with the earnings that they've been having, the actual PE multiple has come down. And that just means that the price of the shares is not keeping up with the earnings. That's a good thing if you're looking to buy shares of Nvidia today. Our last chart on this segment is a chart that says Nvidia is still the biggest driver of the S&P 500 success. And you can see 20% almost of the success of the S&P 500 comes from Nvidia. If Nvidia is going, so is the S&P. And you can see there Alphabet, Microsoft, Broadcom, 10, 10, and 8% respectively. Total return in the first 10 months of 2025, S&P 500 was about 17.5%. We've seen a bit of a pullback since then, but it definitely due to Nvidia's run-up. And you can obviously see some of the names, Accenture, Salesforce, Fiserv, United Health Group. Those are responsible for some of the declines of the S&P 500. So Nvidia, it is important. It makes up almost 10% of the S&P 500. It is a name that we all watch. We all listen for their earnings. We hear or we listen for what their CEO says. Very important to the market. Why it fell coming out of earnings release. I just think the market investors may think that maybe Nvidia is as good as it gets here. Well, we'll have to see in the coming quarters. Perhaps if Nvidia is allowed to sell chips to China, which is on the table now with President Trump. If they are, well, that's a new revenue source that has not been included in the numbers. and perhaps Nvidia can go even higher. So we'll have to see how Nvidia does, but definitely a very important part of the stock market and many individuals' portfolios.